now. And we'll, first of all, we would look at plagiarism. So I know a lot of us have heard so much about that. And maybe after the session, you'll be clearer on what it really means, and why as a student, you should try as much as possible to stay away from it. Okay, so for this first session, we would look at avoid plagiarism in scientific writing. So it is the desire of every academician, it is the desire of every writer, it is the desire of everyone that want to make one form or the other to avoid any form of plagiarism. But most times I know it is not always very easy. I know it takes a lot of skills, for us to be able to get to this path. So to begin, I will start with a definition. So as a way of definition, what is plagiarism? So plagiarism is an act intentionally or unintentionally in obtaining or trying to obtain credit or value for a scientific work by quoting part or all of the work or scientific work of others without stating the source appropriately and adequately. In summary, what does that mean? Plagiarism is simply stealing someone else's work as if it is your own. So everything I have said right now, that is the summary of it. This is someone else's work. It is not your work. And you are not giving credit for their work. You simply take their work, you do whatever you want to do with it, and you don't give credit to it. That is plagiarism. And that can be another form of academic theft. So it is always encouraging as a student or as an academician or as a lecturer, whatever you do, to always give kudos and to always give credence to whom it is due, like they always say. So it's simply cut and paste. And a lot of people do this. And for me personally, in my field, and also in my environment where I teach, I have noticed that one of the major cause of plagiarism is when students are in a hurry to get their assignments done. Very soon we'll be going into the final assignment phase, and it is always very good to start early. When you start early, you have a lot of time to read through the articles you're researching on. You have a lot of time to revise them. You have a lot of time to brainstorm and be very creative. But when you wait 1 week to submission, 5 days to submission, 3 days to submission, you become tensed. All your creativity, all your novel ideas flies away. And you find it difficult to actually do anything creative. So I advise you as a student that whenever you want to do what you need to do, please start early. Start early. So when you start early, it is always very, very, very good, because that way you avoid copy, cut, and paste, because these aspects involve a lot and a lot of plagiarism. So, types of plagiarism. The one you copy and paste, that's the most generalized one. The other one is taking people's ideas as if it's your own, and you pretend like it's your own. The other one is word switch. you try to manipulate the words so that nobody would know that is actually from someone else. The other one is metaphor. Students do this a lot. You use synonyms, antonyms, you try to tweak it. You even try to manipulate the style. So these are all the things students do so that they would not be caught. But trust me, the software we have at the Public Ed U is very thorough. Whether you're doing copy and paste, you're doing the idea one, you're doing the word switch, or the metaphor, synonyms, and antonyms, or you're simply changing the styles, as long as they are direct concept you took from someone else's word, our software has the opportunity to actually find those words out. So it's time to begin to think creatively. Examples, we've seen so many examples of where plagiarism had a lot of disadvantage in the careers of academicians. For example, in my own university, we had a professor that was sacked simply because a paper or some papers he published that he used for his promotion to ascend to a professor was detected to be plagiarized. And he was sacked because my university takes plagiarism very, very seriously. Another example I can give you was another academician, that supervised a student. And when it was time for the student to publish, he took the work, published the work on behalf of the student, and made himself first author. Meaning he didn't give the student the opportunity to be first author in his work, only to find out that the work of the student was almost 90% plagiarized. The student actually copied someone else's work from the internet and changed the title. And the supervisor didn't know, he thought it was the student's work. And guess what? The university penalized the lecturer. He was actually fired. Reason being that since you have made yourself the first author of that work, you take the full responsibility of the wrath that comes with it. So plagiarism may not get you now. You may do it now, maybe because you're still a student, you're still a master's student and the rest. But when you become a professor tomorrow and you're given an appointment in one of the, in one of the high league universities, then people will begin to scrutinize your work and begin to check what sort of researches you did. And if you were found to plagiarize, trust me, the height you have attained will be removed. So as a young scientist, as a young researcher, it's better to start doing things properly from this stage. You don't have to wait until you become a professor. So in a nutshell, stop plagiarizing, stop using other people's work. So factors causing plagiarism: lack of study and reading time, I've mentioned that. Poor understanding, when you don't understand the concept. That's why I encourage students, please don't read only one material to understand a concept. You're on the internet. There's so many informations out there. Read as many as you can. If you don't have an understanding of one concept, check another article, check another reading material. Don't say, oh, this one article I have found, I must read it and understand it. It doesn't always work like that. So many authors write differently. Some write in a very simple way, some write in a very critical way. So please, if you're reading something you want to use for your assignment and it's not clear, move to something else. Lack of supervision. This is very important too when you're on your own. Nobody's guiding you. Nobody's telling you what to do. You're just a lone man trying to do something. And we discourage that even at PHU. That's why you have tutors. That's why you have academic supervisors. We encourage you to always reach out. As you can see, we're always very active online. When you have issues, reach out to us. Oh, I'm trying to do this and I'm having a challenge. What do I do? We would definitely assist you. We would definitely provide information that will guide you. Please don't walk alone. Students fall into traps like this when they are working alone without any form of supervision. The other one is sophisticated information and communication technology. When you begin to use sophisticated gadgets and you think they would actually help you, to modernize the world and make it look finer, make it look differently, sometimes you may just fall victim. They may not paraphrase it enough for on detection. The other one is laziness, like I mentioned. You would wait until when it's 5 days or 3 days to submission of your final assignment. You start rushing, doing fire brigade, and you will be tempted to do copy and paste. The other one is the erosion of honesty. When you don't care anymore. I mean, anything goes. I don't care what people think. I mean, I can do anything I like. I can just put it out there, So as a scientist, integrity matters. Don't ever come to a point where your integrity and where your honesty as a scientist is reduced, or you don't pay attention on it anymore. So how to avoid plagiarism? You can use live quotes if they are definitions. It's allowed, okay? But the other one is paraphrasing, summary, conclusion. So where you have definitions, you can use the live quote, put them in quotation marks. But for things that are not definitions, you paraphrase. Sometimes you can summarize it. You summarize, you read the concept, you understand it, and you use your own words the way you understand it. That helps a lot. So the forms of plagiarism, you can plagiarize someone's ideas as if it's your own. Their content, meaning their research data itself. Words, sentences, or paragraphs they have written. Or you can even hijack the whole work. Like the example I gave to you, the student hijacked the whole work of someone else. He only changed the title. So you can actually hijack the person's work, called total plagiarism. So we have to avoid any of these forms. All right, so how would you prevent this? Like I mentioned over and over again, take time to read the work. Use your own concept, your own idea to summarize and to paraphrase the content. Because I believe when, like in medical school, we're taught that you don't pass by reading. You pass by rereading, meaning that you read something over and over again. And that is what good writers do. Good writers, they read something over and over again. And you should have that habit. So if you're working on an assignment or you're working on a writing, you don't just read that thing once or in one place. You can read the same information in 2 or 3 different, aspects of the way an author puts it. And when you read all these things, you find out that it inspires you. By reading 2 or 3 informations pertaining to that topic you are interested in, you find out you get inspired and you're able to conceptualize these things from your own understanding of what you have read. So when you stop using someone else's idea and you stop copying and pasting, you find out that you are staying far away from plagiarizing. Like I mentioned, if there is a definition, you can put it in quotation mark. You're not allowed, what I mean, you don't need to paraphrase a definition. And most of the public health field, you could have a lot of definitions of maternal mortality, definitions of HIV, definitions of work-life balance, definitions of quality of life. So these are straight up definitions that have been given either by World Health Organizations or the Center for Disease Control. You don't need to paraphrase these definitions. They are definitions. So what you can do, if you're going to use them, just put them in a quote, okay? And finally, self-plagiarism has been a debate over and over again. Almost every conference I have the opportunity to attend, they always talk about self-plagiarism. What is self-plagiarism? When you plagiarize yourself. You have published a paper before, and that paper has some concept you are putting in the new paper you're writing. You just go to the old paper that has been published and you copy everything there because you think, oh, it's my own paper. How can I plagiarize myself? Yes, you can. It's called self-plagiarism. You can plagiarize yourself, you know? So avoid copying a huge chunk of the text from a paper you had earlier published in your new paper. It's plagiarism and you'll be caught. You know, so if you wrote the first paper, you can write the second paper and you can write the third paper. You know, so don't tell me because you've written the first paper, you've lost creativity. No, you know, the creativity is still there. You know, so if you've written the first paper, I think you can write the second one and you can write the third one. So you don't have to go to your first paper and copy most of the text there just because you're too lazy to do a fresh or a new research for the second paper. Okay, so self-plagiarism is not allowed, so avoid that. Okay, so some strategies you can use. Some schools have librarians that are very, very helpful, and they can also help you to understand this concept that I'm teaching. So if your school or your workplace in the university has this sort of opportunity where you have an office of the librarian, there are a lot of them are really experts in actually teaching students the skill to avoid these things. Okay, like I mentioned, when you identify a topic, read several sources of it. That way you gain more insight and it helps your writing. And learn the referencing format. If you're going to be using people's idea, then you have to learn how to reference. And we're going to do that in the next slide, in the next presentation. So ask a mentor, your boss, your expert in the field. In this case, your supervisors, like I mentioned, we are here for you. If you're having any challenge, please talk to us. And the anti-plagiarism apps, which you're very much aware, which we use at Public Edu. So there are so many of them. The one that we use here is the Turnitin. So there are so many others. Because these things are necessary now, very, very necessary now, so that people would not use people's work to get some sort of credit, you know? So these apps are not there to witch hunt anyone, you know, they're not there to make you look bad in your writing. They are simply there to strengthen your writing, to make you a better writer, a creative writer, a writer with more insight, a writer with more experience, all right? So similarity index, mild less than 20, medium 20 to 40, greater than 40 is severe. And for PAGU, we tolerate scores less than 30%, you know? So the smaller, the better. The smaller, the better. So when you're writing, like for me, when I write, I target plagiarism scores less than 10. Less than 10, and it's possible you can do it. You know, you just have to set your heart towards it and say, I'm going to read the text I'm going to use for this assignment, I'm going to understand it, and I'm going to use my own words to explain the same thing and reference the source where I got the inspiration or the idea from. It's possible, you can do it. All right, so examples of paraphrasing, like for example, look at this original text. It says, minimizing the risk of impoverishing healthcare payments is a value policy goal in most health systems. That's the original text, but it can be it can be paraphrased. In the majority of the healthcare system, reducing the possibility of financial ruin caused by medical expenses is a highly valued policy goal. It's still the same thing. You know, it's still the same thing, but this time you've read it so much, you've understood it so much, you can actually dish it out in your own words. But don't forget, you have to still go back and give credit to whom credit is what? Due. You know, someone will ask, if I have gone through this effort, you know, to get it paraphrased, do I still need to reference the original author? It is now my work because now I have put it in my own grammar, so it is now my work. No, it's not yet your work, not yet, because the inspiration and the idea you got from someone else. So you have to give credit to whom credit is due. So the next one, which is the final example, the financial burden imposed by out-of-pocket payments, including user charges on poor household, has been a subject of health financing debate over the recent years. So this original text is simply talking about the challenges, especially people from low-income countries face from out-of-pocket expenses. It can be a burden. It can be a huge burden. Some people find it difficult to actually go for regular medical treatment when they think that they have to pay from their pocket. But when you have things like health insurance, you don't worry. You can go for health checkup as many times as you want because you know insurance covers that, all right? So I have explained this now to you by reading this original text. I know what the author is trying to say. And, you know, you can be inspired and you can turn it. You know, in recent years, one of the most contentious issues regarding healthcare financing has been the financial burden that low-income families. You see, what I just mentioned, low-income what? Families. There was no low-income family in the original text, per se. But reading the original text, I'm inspired. I know that this thing happens a lot in my region, in my low-income region. You know, so you can bring that concept in and express how you feel about these things, you know, so that way you are able to show us that you understood the original text and you're able to dish it out in the way you understand it and still give credit to whom credit is due. So I think these are references. I think this is where we'll end this session for now. Thank you very much. So we're going to end this session now. So we have another session. So I don't know if we should take questions or take the other session first.
I think we should take the question, Felix. We have one on the chat.
Okay.
And if the content is summarized in own words, then does it need referencing or put in inverted comma?
Please repeat that again, sorry.
That if the content is summarized in their own words, then does it need referencing or put in inverted comma? With inverted comma, I'm assuming it means quotation marks?
Yes, it means quotation mark. The only time you are allowed to use, thank you, Valeria, for that question, for reading it to me. So the only time you're allowed to put a quotation mark is if it's a definition. The quotation mark simply means, I know it's not mine, but I can't change it because it's a universally accepted concept. So I can't change the words. It's like trying to change the definition of maternal mortality or trying to change the definition of human immunodeficiency virus. You know, there are certain things you can't change. So if it's a definition, fine, it should be in quotation mark. But if it is a concept or an idea, you read someone else's work, you got inspiration and you paraphrased, good job. You've done a very good job by paraphrasing, but still you have to give credit to whom credit is due because you got that inspiration from somewhere. So you have to give credit to that author that inspired you to write something like that and you're able to paraphrase it. Yes, if you paraphrase, you will still have to reference where you got that idea from. Thank you.
We have another question for Agustin. Agustin, you can ask.
Okay, thank you so much, Felix, for that wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
I just needed a clarification. Now maybe you are asked to list out some factors, or maybe you want to list principles that are contained in a paper or a book.
Yeah.
Do you have to paraphrase those factors or the principles as listed in the books? And assuming the factors or principles are like 5, do you have to quote for each of the principle? Or when you finish listing the whole principles, then you now can cite the reference? I don't know if you get what I'm trying to explain.
I get you very well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you, Augustine. So principles and definitions, they fall in the same line. But I also wanted to appreciate the fact that certain principles may not be validated principles. They may not be universally acceptable principles. So you, as a researcher or as a scientist, you have to do your homework well to know. For example, the held belief model, that is universal. So if you're going to be using a principle like the held belief model, you don't have to change anything. That is a standard. So if it is stated, then you will have to put it in quotation mark. But if the text is so much, then you have to read it and paraphrase it and still credit the author. But if it is more than one principle, then you don't have to list all of them and put one reference. For every principle, you have to cite it. Because most of the time, when you do things like that, it may not, some persons may not be able to tell that the previous principles are sharing the same reference that is down. So since there are things that you're going to be mentioning in different steps, please just reference them, the same reference one by one, so that you don't now list everything and now put one reference below, because most times it can be confusing. Alternatively is to have a heading. Maybe that heading will have like principles of these, then you put a reference after that heading. So whoever is reading knows that these bullet points that I'm reading now are coming from this same reference. Because when you're writing, you have to make things clear as much as you can. You don't just assume that, oh, they will understand that this is how it is. So I don't know if I answered your question, but if I didn't, you can clarify again.
You very well. You answered it very well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Augustine. Do we have another question in the chat, Valeria?
No, we can go on. We can go on with the second session.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we're going to be looking at the second section now. So that second section is on referencing. Okay.
We can't see your screen, Felix, in case you.
I'm still sharing.
No,
okay.
you can share your screen to share the presentation on.
Yeah.
The styles, right?
Oh yeah. Okay. So this is it.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you see now? Okay. All right. So this is the second presentation, academic referencing, how to cite constructively. So this is very, very important for all of us. So I'm going to be putting you through a theory aspect. Then later we will do some form of demonstration so that you would grab the concept better. So what is referencing and citation? In a nutshell, referencing is simply you use someone else's work, use someone else's idea, and you say, oh, I got this idea from you. I drew this knowledge from you. I drew this concept from you. Take the credit. is not mine. Because when you do this as a researcher, others will do the same for you, because you would also write, you would also publish. Do you know how I feel when Google Scholar send me messages and say, oh, somebody somewhere cited your work? I receive citations from different countries. You feel so good that someone else is citing your work. Someone else is recommending your work. Someone else is giving you credit for what you did. So if as a researcher, you feel that way, receiving things, letters from ResearchGate and say, oh, so person from Philippines or from Indonesia or somewhere in China just read your work and they reference your work in their article. It's a wonderful feeling. So if you feel this way, I think you should also give others the honor to also feel that way. You know, so I mean, nobody's expecting you to be the author and, you know, the author and finisher of knowledge. Nobody is, you know, so there's no harm saying, oh, this idea, I got inspired when I was reading this. There's no harm, you know, so don't give us the impression that, oh, this thing came from me. It's me and me alone. It's rarely that way, especially in an academic setting like PHU. So apart from the fact that we want you to reference and cite, you know, where you got inspired, you know, from writing that section, we also feel it's an academic exercise, you know, for you, because that is what we do in the academic community. We respect our seniors. We give credit to those that have gone ahead of us. You know, like Albert Einstein, we say, you see farther by standing on the shoulders of others. So that is where all these things come from. You know, give credit to others. So that is, you know, what the referencing and the citation, it's all about. And there are different styles of doing this. There are different styles, which are different formatting and the rest of them, which I will be putting you through. Then later we would look at the practical sections. Okay, so some of them, you have the APA, which is very popular, the American Psychological Association. That is the one we use at Public Health U. And another one we use as Public Health U is the Vancouver style. So the humanities, the business, the engineering, you can use that one for other writing, but for PHU, our interest is in APA and also the Vancouver. All right, so your final assignment or whatever writing you are doing, we would be expecting to see either APA or Vancouver. So the rest, you can just learn them for learning purposes, all right? So the current edition is 7th edition, which was published in 2020. So we expect you to use the 7th edition when you are writing or submitting your final assignment, or you can use the Vancouver. So for the APA, these are examples of how you can cite them, since most of us will be making reference to electronic journals. So for electronic journals, like for example, the Grady et al., this is how you put it inside the text. Then later, you can put in the reference page or the bibliography this way. You would appreciate one of the unique things about the APA is that one, you put the surname, then the other names are in abbreviations with full stops and a comma. When you look at Vancouver, you will not see the full stop. You will just have Grady JS, Ha M, Morono G. But for APA, after the surname and the comma, you would have the abbreviations in full stop. And another thing is for APA, you would have the YA after the author's name. But for Vancouver, you would have the YA at the end. So you have the author's names and you have the YA. And also, APA may look a little alike with Harvard. But one thing you can use to separate APA from Harvard is this and. In Harvard, this symbol and is not used for Juno. They use the real and, which is the AND. But for APA, you will see this sort of and is used. So once you list the author's name and the YA, the next thing that follows is the title of the article. The title of the article follows immediately. So after the title of the article, you have a comma. The next thing that follows is the volume. Then you have the issue in brackets. Then you have the page number. The DOI is not compulsory. It depends on the journal you're submitting it to. Most journals will insist that you put the DOI, most will not. So this DOI is very good. If you can find the DOI, beautiful. The DOI is actually the digital object imaging. It's actually an online repository where people store their journals, all right? More like a website to find people's journals, like an archive, like a drive, all right? So this is how it works. So most of us will be using electronic journal for our articles. So this is how it is. But if you're going to be using a website, please don't forget to put the link. Very important. So if you're going to be using a website, you put the link. Okay, and most times you can tell us when you access that website. It's also good to put at the end when you access the website, so that if someone else accesses the website and they don't find it, they will know, oh, okay, this website was accessed 6 months ago. Maybe it's not available online anymore. The other thing is a book. So for a book, after putting the author and the year and the title of the book, you would put where the book is published. And sometimes after where the book is published, you are recommended to put the country. So you can have Penguin Books, New York City, you know, something like that. So this is for APA, 7th edition, the examples. The other one is the Modern Language Association. So this has their format in this way. You have the author. Then after the author, you don't have a YA. You remember in APA, after you have the author, you have a YA. And you don't even put the full names. Here, you put the full names. Then you put the article. Then after the title of the article, you put the volume VOL2, NO1. But for APA, you don't do this. You just put 2, 1 in bracket, then the YA, then the page number. But here, you have to do volume 2, number 1, 2007, then PP for the page number. For APA, you don't have to do PP. Harvard, you also do PP. Harvard, you do PP, meaning page number. But for Harvard, for APA, you don't do that. You don't even put the volume spelled or the number spelled. And the YA comes immediately after the author. All right, so these are also examples for the MLA that I explained initially. Then you have the Chicago, which is also recommended for some American universities. And they have their own style, like in terms of their own electronic article or journal. You see, the YA is not in brackets, unlike in APA, where you have the YA in brackets. And you will notice that the page number comes immediately after the volume. Although it's not instant that it has to be this way, but what I mean is if the article has an issue, why not? You can put the issue here. But one thing I want you to appreciate here is the YA is not in brackets. Okay, and most of the time you can put the DOI. if it's recommended, but it's not like it is compulsory. Okay. Then the other one, which is the Vancouver, they are numeric, meaning that you use numbers to represent your in-text citation and you list them in numbers. All right. I will show you an example of that practically. Then you have the Harvard, like I had mentioned, which is almost like the APA. The only difference is that it uses and instead of that and symbol. Okay, so I would show us that so that you would appreciate what I'm saying. Then the anatomy of a reference. Most of the references we have are usually in text. All right, meaning that you write the information and you put the source after the information. That's how it usually is. But sometimes you may want to emphasize what an author said. You can say, oh, Kelechi et al., made the postulation or observed that. So the author name now comes first because you want to use them to emphasize something. But most of the time, it's when you are finished, writing up your idea, that you can now put the reference. Then you can now bring everything into a reference list at the end. All right, so we have the IEEE style 2, mainly used by the engineers, okay? And they can reference with this sort of numbers, having them separated and in brackets. Okay, so creating a reference list, so that I had mentioned earlier on, because you have to do that after all your in-text citation, that you can put everything below a reference list. That is the proper thing to do so that people can easily track what you have inside the text on your reference list. And I will say that when you're doing your reference list, please always be careful. One thing that gets your examiners or your supervisors very upset is when they have references in your text that is not on your reference list. I mean, I've seen that severally for my students. It could be the other way around. You have something on the reference, but it's not in text. But that one is not easy to track. But the one that is very easy to track is when you said that, oh, you mentioned something and you said you got the reference from, Douglas et al., 2015, and I'll go to your reference list and I can't find it. So what they do most times, they can just randomly check like 5 references in your work to see if they are on the list. They may not have the time to check it one by one, but they can randomly pick 5. And what if they randomly pick 5 and 2 of the random pick 5 is not on your reference list? It just shows something is wrong. You are probably, probably hyping your in-text citation without putting it on the list of references. So that is not really, really good. So you have to pay attention when you are making a reference list. Ensure all the time that every in-text citation you use, they are found on your reference list. Please, it's a careful work that you have to do because it is very, very important. Okay, so this is how the IEE is used for book chapter, for conference paper, and the rest of them. So you can study this later on. So citing sources using a citation manager. A lot of you are aware, we have so many of them now. We have Mendeley, we have Zotero, we have EndNote, and so many others. All right. So it is good to learn one. It is good to learn one. It would be a very good thing to learn, before you finish your MPH. And I think there are 2 that are very easy to learn, and they are free. the Zotero and Mendeley. They are free, so you can actually learn them. I think EndNote is not free, but Zotero and Mendeley is free, and they are very good. I use Mendeley a lot, and it's a very powerful citation or reference manager software. You would find it very useful, especially when you're doing Vancouver kind of referencing where you're going to be using numbering. You know, you will find it very, very useful. All right, thank you very much. So before you ask your questions, okay? So please, let's do a little practical before you ask your questions, so that I will take everything at once. Someone asked the question. It says,
sorry, may I assist with the questions, Felix?
Oh, yes,
we have
yes.
a question from Marianne Lowell.
Yes, please.
For the website on APA referencing, I noticed the month was included in addition to the year. Please, can you explain this further?
Yeah, so for APA referencing, it's not really necessary to put the months. It's not really necessary, because sometimes when you use a citation manager, sometimes the citation managers can be overly critical, overly sensitive. You know, when you reference with it, they can even give you the month, you know, so it's not really necessary. What is really important is the author's name, the year, the title of the article, the volume, the issue, and the page number. The DOI or the month, they are usually not very important. But some journals may recommend it, but they are not important. So these ones I've mentioned, they're actually the key things to look out for. Thank you.
Thank you. Nora says, each time I cite on the APA website, the date of citation is always included. There is an option to cite manually, but I don't really understand how to go about that. I would greatly appreciate if some light can be thrown on this.
Yeah, exactly. I will show you how to cite manually now. Let me show you that, then we can take a further question. So we're going to do some practical examples on how to cite manually. So it's going to be quite interesting.
Sorry, Felix.
Yeah.
We have one more question before we jump to the next phase.
All right.
And you respond practically to that question. This one from Tenyabu says, in a situation where one gets an article without a year but has a link, how can it be referenced on the reference list? For example, a CDC article having a link but without the year.
Yeah, so it is actually allowed to use ND. ND is allowed. ND simply means no dates. So you can put the author, you can put the title of the article, you can put the publisher's name, then you can put the other things if they are available, like the volume, the issue, and the page. But if there's no year, you can actually put in bracket ND, no dates. It's allowed. Although what I do is I have found that one article can't be the source of all information. As in, what I'm trying to say is, if I am looking for, maybe I've made a statement about maternal mortality, and I'm looking for an article to defend it. And the first article I found, which was really nice to present my idea, doesn't have a date, I would find another article that has a date, you know? So except there's none, then I would have to stick with that one. But if the first article you found doesn't have a date, please move to another article. You could find at least 5 articles that share the same meaning or the same sentiments of what you're trying to quote or cite. you know, so, but it is allowed if you use ND, no date, it's allowed. But I wouldn't want you to have so many NDs in your work. That one is not allowed at all. Yeah. Thank you.
And I would like to complement this as Felix prepares his or starts sharing his screen to continue with the last part. It's just that some organisms, as CDC, sometimes publish, or a Minister of Health, for example, publishes a note, and you have no date, but you can find on the website, on their website, when it was published. As for CDC, I like to cite it as a website, as a web page, more than as an article, and you will find the same information there.
Exactly, very true. Yes, yes. Especially sometimes I think sometimes they will put a year date down, said updated certain time, right? So once you see this article was updated, so date and so year, you can actually use that, Valeria, right?
Exactly, that was my point, and this has come to importance with things like, especially with communicable diseases, as updates and dates are usually highly important, and maybe not so much in non-communicable diseases.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Valeria, for adding to that. Thank you. So let's look at some practical stuff. Okay. Sorry, just a second. Okay. So I'm going to do this again. Okay. Can you see my browser?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Now, let's assume I am writing an article and I want to read something. Maybe I am doing something on noise-induced hearing loss, and I was told that, or I have had this concept that noise-induced hearing loss can increase with increasing age. You know, and I want to look for articles that will defend that hypothesis or that idea that I have. Okay, so I can go online and I can use key search words. The two key search words there is age and noise-induced hearing loss. So I can say age-related noise-induced hearing loss. I can write this and see what article comes out. Then I can say enter. So right here, I've started seeing articles. If you scroll down, you would see some articles. So I have this one, age-related hearing loss. If I scroll down, I have another one. So I can do something since the bracket is usually 10 years, and I don't want Google to begin to bring out so many information that are older than 10 years or 5 years. I can actually track it. So I can come to tools here and click tools. Then I can come to anytime. So when you click anytime, you can custom search and say, please, Google, I want to search this. I only want articles between 2015 and 2022. That's what you should give to me. And you say, go. And you see, so you would notice that most of the articles is going to bring out now would be within, you see, this one is 2017, this one is 2019, you see. So most, you see, this is 2017, so this is 2020, this is 2015. So most of the articles is going to give to you would be within 2015 and 2022. So that way, you know, you are sure you won't have to be reading so many unnecessary things. Now, I like this one, noise-induced and age-related hearing loss. I love this one. is really in line with my research question. And what was my research question? Is age noise-induced hearing loss influenced by the person's age? That was my research question. And I've gone to the internet to begin to search to see articles that would defend this idea that I have in my head. So I like this one. I'm going to open it now. So I do new tab so that this remains. So it opens in a different tab for me. The first thing I will do is to read the abstract first. Read the abstract to see if it has what you need. You look at the result session and see if it has what you need. If it has what you need, beautiful. You can now put it in your work. All right. So how do you put these in your work? But before I use this one, let me find another article. I hope you can still see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right.
See
So
your browser right now.
Very good. So I have seen that one. I like that one, but let me find another one again. All right, let me see this article. So this one is from the Frontiers. Okay, so I like this one too. This one talked about age-related hearing loss is accelerated by repeated short duration of loud sound simulation. Good, I like this one. So I can also go to the abstract, take a look at it. If I like it, I said, okay, now I want to reference this. And I don't want to go through the stress of manually referencing this, because when you manually reference this, you could make mistake, especially when you want to do APA and you're not familiar with it. You may not be sure where to put the full stop, where to put the comma and the rest. So what you do is very simple. Just go to Google Scholar, open Google Scholar. It's called Scholar Google online. All right. So go to that article, copy the name of that article, go to Google Scholar and paste it there and search. And Google Scholar will bring the article for you. Are you seeing the article? So once you have seen the article, just come to this place that says sites that has the two quotation mark, click it. Once you click it, it will list out several reference format for you. So if it's APA you need, you can copy the APA. If it's Vancouver you need, you can copy the Vancouver. It's already well arranged. All right, so you won't have to struggle if you are arranging it properly or you are not arranging it properly. And this is for those that are not using a reference manager, which is better. All right, so let's try another article. I will demonstrate with another article, and that is where we're going to stop for this. Then I will go to the next thing that I would like to say. So this is recorded. You shouldn't worry. You will be able to, to watch it again. So this one talks about current insight in noise-induced hearing loss, a literature review of the underlying mechanism, pathophysiology, and the rest of them. And I want this article and I want the APA of this. So I can copy this and I can come over here. The same thing I've done. Same thing I've done. I can remove this, paste the new article, then I can search. So once I search, I can come back to this quotation part and click on it, and it will list the references. Are you seeing it? It's listing everything. So it's APA
Yes.
I need. Yeah, so I just come to APA. I can copy the APA, then go to my blank Word, go to a blank Word document where I am already doing my writing. Then I can go to the reference list and just paste it there. Okay. So I probably have a reference section. Probably have a reference section. Then I can paste it here. So that's it. But the thing now is, The arrangement would be manual because APA is arranged alphabetically. So what I'm trying to say is, if you paste this first one here, which is L, if you go to that place and search for another reference that is A, you would have to bring this down and put A on top of L because A comes before L. So that's the thing about this type of referencing. Why it will accurately display the way it is supposed to be arranged without you having to struggle, where do I put this, where do I put that? But arranging it in alphabetical order, that is you. You would have to do that yourself. The only way you will not have to do that manually is if you learn how to use a reference manager, either Mendeley or Zotero. Okay, so I don't know if anyone has any question on this before we look at our final topic for this evening.
We have one question, Felix, but it's
Okay.
not on this part. It's on when article or when it's a website without a publication date. Can we post the day, cite the date that we access them? The access date, I think it's a part we should clarify as well.
Yeah, I think that if it's a web page, it is always very good to put the access dates, you know, so that people wouldn't feel that you actually wrote down a fake website. What I'm trying to say is you can access a website today, and in 1 month's time, that site is taken down. So if you put the dates and someone else that is reading your work go to that website 1 month later, and the website is no longer there, they would not think you inserted a wrong website. What they would think is, oh, okay, it's been like a month ago, probably the website is now brought down, is no longer there. So that because websites change. That's one thing with websites. You can view them today, and the next day you're there, they're not there anymore because they will keep upgrading and the rest of them. And a lot of us would have noticed WHO upgraded their website to something else, and most of the links we had earlier, if you put them on the site, they don't work anymore. You know, so but when you have the date there, people are aware, oh, okay, this was a while ago, so maybe the site is not there anymore. So that is the benefit, you know, of putting the date when you access that article. Thank you so much, Valeria. So we will quickly look at the final path because we have overshot our time. So your final assignments, there are key things we just want to mention because we noticed that when we grade these things, there are lots of you that have potentials to do very well, you know, but because you just missed a few things and you now realize that, you know, your grades are poor. But I have read beautiful work, but poor grades, you know, just because you didn't pay attention to what we call the marking grid. The marking grid is so fantastic. And I don't know why you would miss something like this. I can't remember having this in my undergraduate level. It's like what we call expo in Nigeria. The lecturer is already giving you a clue of what they expect from you, you know? So it's fantastic to actually have something like this. And if you diligently, because I from reading some of your work is like you just read and you just start writing. You know, for me, I was once a student at People's Uni, now PHU, and I used to pay attention a lot to the marking grid. I used to pay attention a lot because I learned a very, very important lesson during my undergraduate level. There's a course they call, cardiovascular physiology. Now, the cardiovascular physiology has a particular topic that has to do with the the heart pumping cycle and all those potentials and all those stimulations that goes on in the heart. I used to love that thing a lot. It used to inspire me. I knew it so much that I was even teaching it in class. I was inspiring students on it. On the day that we had to write the exams, I was so confident. And they gave us the paper and we are all writing. And I had 5 questions to answer. And each question had about roughly 15 marks. And I had 5. And because I knew the question 1 so well, it was 1 hour, 45 minutes or 2 hours exam. I used 1 hour, 30 minutes answering 1 question because I knew so much. I was drawing all the diagram. I was trying to impress the lecturer with 1 question. I was in 1 question when I had 30 minutes to go. And I was confused. So I stopped that question and I took question 2. I did a little bit of question 2 and a little bit of question 3 in the 30 minutes that was remaining. But guess what? I failed that course. I think that was my first F in school. Not because I didn't know it, but because I knew it so much, I didn't know how to split my time very well. And I learned a big lesson from it. So what that taught me is when you're given a question, don't put all your egg on one aspect, spread it. They've given you a marking grid and they say part A, number A, magnitude of problem of maternal mortality. And they want to see definition, they want to see effect of maternal mortality, they want to see magnitude global. So they want to see a little bit of all these things. Don't just say, oh, they are talking about magnitude of maternal mortality, problem of maternal. Just give them everything about magnitude of maternal mortality. Try as much as possible to put these questions, these issues in paragraphs. Because when they are grading you for the 15 marks, they will check whether there's definition, there's effect of maternal mortality, you mention things on magnitude, you mention things on indicator, you mention things on differences, you mention things on problem of data accuracy. They will check all these things and you have to mention a bit of them using a paragraph if possible. And you have to separate your work into part A, B, C. I've seen students, let's say now part A, they would write magnitude of the problem of maternal mortality, causes of maternal mortality, and health system and barriers, all in the same section without, so you are reading the student's work, you can't tell where is A, where is B, where is C, because they just lump everything together and they expect you as the grader to know. Trust me, your assessors have so many things to read and so many things to grade. So if you're able to put these bits clearer for them, it makes it easy to read. They're able to figure out your points and they're able to give you the mark and the grade you deserve. I've noticed that students that take their time to pay attention to the marking grid and they're able to answer each of these questions that is asked using a paragraph format or whichever format, they gain more grades. Because you won't be graded for what the assessor didn't see. So if the assessor is intending to give you 3 or 4 marks for mentioning problems of data accuracy and timeliness, which is in part A, number A, and they are reading through your work and they can't find it, you've lost that 4 mark. No matter how beautiful your work is, if they're not able to give you marks in all these different individual aspects you have addressed, your grades at the end of the day will not be very good. So that's a good lesson for you. Don't be lumping your answers together. Separate them. If possible, give it little headings. You know, that way whoever is grading know what they're doing. I will show you an example. So word count is very important. We check it. You know, so sometimes you say, oh, they won't check. It's very easy to check word count. Like, for example, this is my work. I have been told that question A is 500 words. Now I'm going to check if this is 500 words. I'm going to highlight everything I've written for section A, and I'm going to come here, review, and I'm going to come here, word counts. 498 words. So I was very careful in everything I wrote not to exceed the word count. So in the second path, I would do the same thing. Okay, so what I was trying to tell you is, you see in the path A, you have question A, 500 words, 15 marks. So I have A here. And in this A path, from the marking grid I showed you, the first thing that they were expecting you to do is to define maternal mortality. See, that was the first thing I did. I defined maternal mortality. So if there is a 2 mark or there's a 3 mark for that first thing you're expected to do, I already have it. So I'm going to get that mark for it. So I have the A path, then I have the B path is here. Causes of maternal mortality. 500 words too. If I highlight everything and I check, you would see that it's not more than 500 words. It's 499 words. So I was very careful with that, because in the marking grid, you could lose mark for exceeding the word counts. Yes. So these are the things you just have to pay attention to. So you do your work in such a way that it's easy to read. Put the points in paragraphs like I've done. Every paragraph for me is trying to answer an aspect of that marking grid. That way, when they are grading your work, it is very easy for them to follow. And whoever is grading or assessing your work will be very happy, because you make things easy for them. I'll show you the marking grid again finally, so that you would appreciate the fact that everything counts. Just like Valerie has said, if you go down the marking grid, see here, you see, even references, you get 10 marks. 10 marks is a lot. So if you're able to do your referencing well, you get a whooping 10 marks. 10 marks is a lot. But some persons, they just do their referencing shabbily. You can't even tell the format of the referencing, and you lose 10 marks. That's a lot. And see, word count is here. So there are some of the marking grid that will make it very clear and say, as an assessor, subtract 10 marks for every section that exceeds the recommended word limits. Because these are all academic process. They are trainings. If you don't learn these things now, how would you play in the bigger stage? So we have to teach you these things now, so that you know how this game is played when you begin to go to the bigger stage. All right, so please, the final assignment is coming very soon, and we want to see all of you do very well. Begin to learn to pay attention to the marking grid. Once you do that and you're able to address each point in a paragraph, and you're able to separate them, if you're answering section A, or you're answering section B, or you're answering section C very clearly, they're able to see what you're doing, able to see your mark, able to see your reference. Trust me, you will pass, and you read your work also. Sometimes we read your work and we see a lot of typographical error. It just simply means you probably read it once, or you just wrote it hurriedly one night and you just sent without rereading. So please, once a date has been announced for your final assignment, take your time, plan yourself every day, add something to your work, so that you won't have to do fire brigade and submit something not very good. All right, thank you very much. This is where I'm going to end. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming.